internet, telecommunications, computers, or computer networks. How much broader could it possibly be? It gives the president the right to shut down the internet, telecommunications, which means our phones, computers, which is how a lot of people get their news, or computer networks, which are the internal networks for companies.
We're giving one person the unchecked power to do this, and that's the outrageous point. There's no legislative body, there's no Security Council, there's no meeting of top advice. It's basically the President of the United States has this unchecked power. Jay, it just sounds like, again, what we're talking about when it comes to countries like China, North Korea, Iran, this unchecked power. It's frightening.
You know, I'm going to read this again, folks, and I'm going to tell you, you need to understand this. We go through these legislation, pieces of legislation, line by line. We analyze it under the First Amendment. We look at the scope and where this is going to be at the end of the day, how it impacts. Here is how cyber is defined under this bill. Cyber is defined as anything having to do with the internet, telecommunications, computers, or computer networks. And then the president, under the Cybersecurity Act of 2009, is given the authority to shut down those mediums. Now, the scope of that could not be any broader, Jordan. The scope of what's at stake here for America could not be any broader, especially for free speech.
Well, under this administration that already has tried to scare people from speaking out, an administration that threatens any kind of dissent, an administration that has said publicly, including the President of the United States, that they will stomp out, that they will meet everyone who is dissenting, that they will come back with the facts, that we're all distorting the truth. They call us liars. They say that we are misleading the public. He invokes Scripture to do so. This is not a man or an administration that I want to give the power to shut down my ability to send out those tweets to people or send out those emails or to get those ACLJ email blasts or to take away from Than Bennett, the ACLJ's Director of Government Affairs, the ability to get those electronic petitions as well, folks. This means an electronic shutdown.
Let's take a look back here, though. We're talking about just a few weeks ago, the White House did their fishy email program. Right. And people may not remember that, and I'm glad we've got our television cameras in here for this broadcast. We need to talk about that for a minute, Jordan, because people don't remember what was at stake at the fishy emails, where they were flagging individual emails and storing that as data.
No, I mean, that's what people have got to understand. This is a White House who intimidates and intimidates.
You know, here's what you've got. I mean, you look at the financial aspect of this is one thing, because you're going to be your inability to track your assets. You look at the ability to not be, or the inability to communicate with your family, your friends, to news sources. Your ability, if there was an emergency, to get information out. All of that is impacted by the Cybersecurity Act.
It goes a step further, too. I mean, and then we'll get back into this in the next time, because the argument that they used to support this bill is that the president had the power, President Bush had the power to ground airplanes on September 11th. On September 11th. You're kidding me, right? I mean, we're talking about airplanes crashing into buildings, and they're talking about internet cybersecurity when we know every single day that allies and those who are not allies are breaking into our highest levels of government, yet that's not a cybersecurity emergency. What are they going to declare as one? Folks, they're going to come up with stuff just to get into your data.
You know, if President Bush would have proposed this, the outrage would have been. Could you imagine?
Where's the ACLU?
Yeah, well, actually, some ACLU lawyers have opposed it. Former ACLU lawyer. ACLU hasn't taken an official position. A former ACLU lawyer did say it, but did oppose it. But here's the thing, that's the irony. Where's People for the American Way? Where are all these civil liberties groups on something like this?
I mean, no, we know what People from the American Way spend their time with. They spend their time tracking us on the internet, but they won't be able to do that under the cybersecurity bill, so maybe they need to look at this. But here's the case, Dad. The truth is what you said was important. Former ACLU lawyers who come out against it. Where is the actual ACLU?
Yeah.
They're not standing up. It's just how Planned Parenthood doesn't say anything either under this administration. They forget all about everything that's going on immediately when the parties change.
All right, here's what we want you to do, folks, as we want you to go to your phones and speak out on this issue critically. Go to your phone right now and speak out on this. Here's the number. It's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. You can also go to ACLJ.org and sign up online. I encourage you to do that. But you call right now. Say no to this legislation that would shut down your private internet. Why? Because the president said so. 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255. Back for more in Washington, D.C. in just a moment. There's a very troubling development on Capitol Hill. It's the cybersecurity bill that we've been talking about, promoted by Senator Rockefeller. It would give the president unchecked and unbridled authority to close down the internet, including your ability to communicate via email. Now, as outrageous as it sounds, that's exactly what we were objecting to in Iran this past summer, when the government there shut down the civil protest of the students. The reason why? The government wanted to control what was being said on the internet. Well, that same authority is now being proposed to allow President Obama to close down the internet on demand in the event of a national emergency. And we think this is wrong. We think it's unconstitutional. We need to oppose it. There's a number on your screen. I want to encourage you to call it right now. It's 1-877-989-2255. Say no to this bill. 1-877-989-2255. You can also go to ACLJ.org. Hey everybody, welcome back to the broadcast. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C. Our office is here next to the Supreme Court of the United States and a block away from the Capitol. By the way, the Supreme Court of the United States will be the next stop on this situation with the Cybersecurity Act. If it passes and is signed by President Obama, we will be in federal court getting this declared unconstitutional. You talking about a power grab, folks? The bill itself says that the president, on his own initiative, in the event of a, quote, cybersecurity emergency, not defined, of course, in the bill, has the authority, and this is what's so critical here, to cut down or to stop the following. Cyber is defined as anything having to do with the internet, telecommunications, computers, or computer networks. Now, we've been talking about the Fairness Doctrine on previous broadcasts. The Fairness Doctrine was going to allow them to control, let the federal government control the content of what's said over the airways, the radio and television. This now is worse because it now stops the only available medium, which would be, of course, the internet, if in fact they were to get a Fairness Doctrine through.
And guess who could be making this decision for us? The so-called internet czar. Now, we've heard this whole czar controversy, so now another czar created, the internet czar. I mean, I think we've got now, what, over 30 czars now, an internet czar who would have the power, because the president could turn over that power, to control private computer networks. The general internet. We're not talking about a CIA website shutdown or something like that, or federal government shutdown. They want to shut down federal computers. That doesn't affect me so much. Fine, go ahead. They're talking about a general private network shutdown. That means your wireless internet at home, your cable modem at home, shut down by the government because of a so-called emergency. Now, this is what I keep saying, and I'm going to say it over and over and over again. If our government computers are hacked every single day, that's not a cybersecurity emergency. I mean, they don't shut down. They haven't asked to shut down all our computers for that. Why do they need this power? Why won't they tell us why they need this power? Why can't they define what this is?
Yeah, and the answer to that is they want to be able to control the messaging. So if you pass a Fairness Doctrine, you're controlling it over the airwaves, the television, radio. You pass a Cybersecurity Act of 2009, sounds innocuous, and now you're controlling the ability to shut off the internet, exactly what we were complaining about the Iranians doing during the student protests this past summer.
Well, Jay, you know, again, it sounds like it's a meaningful bill because it talks about security. Everybody wants security, but this is really the opposite. This is a scenario where basically they can stall all forms of communication, all forms of commerce, and you do that in America, it triggers a domino effect all over the world. Actually, through this process, through this bill, somebody like Obama can basically shut down the entire world.
Yeah, the president's given the authority on this. He is it solo. There's no check on it. There's no committee goes through. The czar and the president make the call.
One of our producers made this point when we were talking about this. They already want to test the Fairness Doctrine, right? So they knock us off the airwaves. There's the airwaves control, the FCC, some new communications, the diversity czar. I mean, it's czar after czar after czar. So they knock us off AM and FM radio. Next up, they control the internet. Guess what, folks? Unless we're going back to some kind of, unless we're using the pony service at the U.S. mail, how are we going to be contacting each other? I mean, I'm serious about this, folks. You're going to get rid of our email. You're going to get rid of our ability to talk to you over the airwaves on radio. And satellite radio has been struggling enough, and the government has regulation all over that. Folks, this is another power grab. They don't like this new media that's rising up, and this is how they want to stop it.
Because the new media has been very effective when the president was wanting to give $8.8 billion. $8.8 billion to Acorn. They were then exposed. Acorn's, the fraud of Acorn was exposed. And when it was exposed, they're not getting funding anymore. Where did it come from? The internet. Young people utilizing the new media. Now, here's what we need to do. We need to speak out against this bill. We need to say no to this bill, and your voice needs to be heard. Jordan's going to give you the number. He's going to tell you what to do. Sign this petition right now. It's critical that we hear from you.
877-989-2255 is the toll-free number you call right now to say no. No, we're not going to give the President of the United States and some other czar another internet czar, because let's listen to this, folks. We know how well they've been vetted. in the past.
They haven't
You want
been.
those people deciding who the president's supposedly choosing for those positions, deciding when to shut down the